Welcome to Real Bass Lessons. Today our lesson is about reading music. I know that's a challenging topic for many people. Sometimes just the actual reading music part's hard, but other times, how do I practice? How do I learn? What do I do to learn to read music? And it's even a challenge for me presenting it here because you're not sitting beside me and we're not looking at the same book. But I want to give you some pointers and I want to give you a demonstration of practicing out of this one book I'm working with here, okay? To start with, there's no magic with reading music. You have to simply work at it. And it's so frustrating, it kind of hurts our brain that you can't do it all in one day or in a weekend or even in a week. You have to have a little bite-sized chunks, kind of like getting in shape over at the gym. And you have to keep pace with yourself. A few problems I've seen for years as students, the number one is people work with too difficult of a material. They sort of think it's sexy, and boy, I'm going to just skip all that basic stuff and work on my Bach cello suites or Charlie Parker. That's not the way to learn to read music. Obviously, if you can already read, some of those more challenging things work. But most people, their biggest challenge is they're working with material that's far too difficult. Simple as that. So you have to humble yourself and work on that simple stuff, okay? Now, reading music involves two skills. One is you got to look at the page and interpret what's there. And two, you have to physically produce it. And sometimes people just don't have the technique. They're sort of playing like this, trying to read music. That doesn't really work very well unless you're reading really simple stuff. So you have to have worked on good hand position and fingering. And if you're going to play up and down with some shifting. So that, again, that's why that's one of the problems. People work on material that requires all of this, and they're worried about the physical aspect, and they're not learning to read. I recommend you start with good old whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes down here, real simple. Okay. Another problem that people have, and that is they just aren't patient. Again, reading music is like going to the gym. You can't do it today. You got to do little bite-sized chunks over and over and over, okay? If you can't read a note of music, this lesson is not for you. You need to go back and look at some of my more fundamental lessons on reading and get yourself a real simple reading book. But if you can read a little bit and you just don't know how to practice and how to get better, this is for you, okay? I'm going to work out of this book here. I'm going to give you some demonstrations. This is called Sight Reading, book 6? No, this is book 5. No, this is book 6, my fault. And guess what? This is an entire book, 1,742 measures, non-stop, of quarter notes. That's an important thing. What we're doing here is we're taking the rhythmic aspect out of the practice. Everybody knows what a quarter note is. So here we're now focusing on, working on, where are those pitches under our fingers. And it's bad practice to get one of those little programs where you just push a button and it just lays all sorts of notes out there. Folks, that's not music. We're not going to play like this when we're playing music, particularly not the bass or anything. No, we need to work on very simplistic but yet common, iconic little melodic and of course rhythmic shapes. Here we're just working with melodic shapes. And they're simple ones, real simple ones. But those are the ones we're going to play in a bass line and in a melodic phrase a lot. So again, there's no magic to it. It's just a matter of repetition. People say, Jim, I want to learn to sight read. Well, sight reading is simply a recognition of stuff that you've already seen in the past and know how to do. So then you learn to just make it happen without stopping. Okay? So this book called Sight Reading Book 6, for a person who can read music a little bit, this is some good sight reading, and it helps you work on your technique at the same time. There's a play along with this, and I'll put the link here for it. Obviously, you'll have to have the book if you want to use it, but there's a play along here, and I'm going to use it, okay? You're not going to see the notes, but you're going to see how I'm going to practice with it. I'm starting at measure 1, and I'm going to play with the play along. Watch. I'll play like little 20, 30 second shots so you can get an idea, then we'll talk about it, then we'll move on. Here we are starting at measure 1. Check it out. think that's enough. Now, that's moving pretty fast for some of you who don't read well. But for others, you go, hey, that's cool, I can do that. Well, the idea is to do it over and over and over and over until you don't make any mistakes. And yes, that's memorization, of course. But you need to be staring at the page. This is not ear training, even though it will help your ear. But you will need to look at the shapes and recognize where they are on your fingerboard. That's what learning to read is all about. Work with good posture in the hands, good technique, good shifting technique, and then learning to recognize shapes, little simple shapes. Let me go a little further ahead in the book, okay, just to demonstrate some other material. By the way, the book doesn't get any more difficult. It just does different things. I mean, it might be more difficult if we're in a key with a bunch of flats and sharps, but just quarter notes. Let me move ahead now. Here we go. Now we're going to start at measure 501 in the book. It's actually 15 minutes and 55 seconds into the play along. And I'll play just a little bit here again, where it looks like we're now in a different key, but we're still at quarter notes. So check it out. I'll let it go and then I'll pick it up at the right spot. Yeah, there's a page turn there. I won't go through it now. But as you can see, we're in a different key. That was a key of B minor. So my hand position was different. You bet. Let's go to another page now. Now we're starting at measure 669, which is 21 minutes and 16 into the play along. By the way, earlier this morning with the student, we played from beginning to end in this book. What is it? 46 minutes and 23 seconds nonstop. A lot of quarter notes. Great practice, not only for reading, but for stamina, mentally more than physically. Sure, so let's pick it up here. Page turn again. That was a difficult one for me. Yeah, but what it does is it forces me to keep going, which is important when you're practicing reading. You got to work on simple enough that you can keep going. If you have to stop constantly, well, that's a different level of reading. But this is the kind of stuff we need to work on. Let me pick one more spot for us to start, okay? Now we're quite a ways further into the book. We're at measure 1033. This is 32 minutes into the play along. Here we go. We're going back into the key of C now. Check it out. I'll pick it up right when it starts. sure, that one involves some playing up here, didn't it? So I have to be able to make those kinds of judgments, where to move my hands to catch all the notes. Now, again, it's just repetition. I've had this book, this book's a good, probably 15 years old. I've used this lots with teaching labs at Berkeley College and with my private students. So you're just going to have to get into it and work it over and over and over. And I want to repeat, quit practicing difficult, fancy stuff. Now, if you can read that, great. Most people need to work on quarter notes, half notes, fundamentals. And if you're a decent reader, this is the kind of stuff you need. Working on hand position and shifts to get all those notes. Basically, it's learning the fingerboard, okay? I hope this helped you. Fire it up.